separate, but then they're friends.
They are components of the same fundamental force, electromagnetism.
That's what she said. They're friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to Lesson 71. We are in our Invisible Things unit. Cheryl, what is the question for today?
Well, Ryan, just like in real classrooms, sometimes teachers are sick or on vacation and we get substitute teachers. And
Am I sick or am I on vacation?
You can just put your feet up and
Great.
Yep, just chill. Because we have a substitute teacher today, Ryan.
Yeah?
Yes.
Who do we have?
This is our friend Ian. Ian, do you want to tell us a little bit about what makes you qualified to be a science substitute teacher?
Sure, I'd love to. First off, I'd like to say I am not a scientist. I am an engineer. I have a bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering. And as my 101 professor stated, scientists search for truth and engineers solve problems. So that's the perspective that I bring.
Nice.
Which is good. That's good.
Very cool. Yay. So, Ryan, I mean, you can go if you want.
All right. See ya.
I'm guessing you want to hang out, though, and maybe glean some things from our lesson today, too.
I do, because I don't actually know all things, and definitely electrical engineering is not my area of expertise. So I'm looking forward to learning something from Ian today.
Yay.
Great. And I can depend on you for the classroom management portion of this. So, if Cheryl gets too rowdy.
I know.
Which always happens.
All right. Well, Cheryl, what is the question for today?
Okay, Ian. Well, I was thinking about electrical things, and there is quite a lot I don't know about electricity, and quite a lot of it that is invisible. So I think it fits well with our unit. But I actually have, I have a hybrid car, but it also has an electrical plug-in. So it does the just electrical thing or the hybrid thing. And so I've had it for a year, and I honestly don't understand how electric engines work. I don't get it. So I think that would be a very close to home and applicable. I don't know if applicable, but really interesting thing to learn more about is this thing that I own that I don't know how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously electric cars are a big deal nowadays, but there are a vast amount of things that have electric motors in them.
Ooh.
Fans, lots of kitchen appliances, blenders, KitchenAids, things like that. Yeah, so there are electric motors all around us at all times.
Wow, so I have a lot of them.
It's a great question.
Then.
Yes, you have probably more than you think, because you don't really probably think about what's inside your blender.
No.
Well, at least what's inside the base of the blender. You probably think what's inside the bowl of the blender.
Yes, that's true.
All right, well, let's start with our pre-assessment. So I'm going to be bold and just ask you outright.
Oh, gosh.
How do you think an electric motor works?
Oh, boy. Well, you plug it in. And I'm guessing that so it gets the power from wherever you plug it in from, but or from a battery, but then it probably has a lot of wires that transfer that power, I'm guessing. And then somehow that energy makes things move. Maybe usually spinning is involved. I'm thinking my blender literally spins. Or a fan also literally spins. But I'm guessing there's even a motor in a car. I know they're spinning in the non-electric ones, so maybe in the electric ones too, that it like a windmill, maybe it creates energy like a windmill does, where like somehow the spinning makes more energy, or is that the outcome of the energy that was already there?
Okay, so we know that you got to power it somehow, either through a battery or an electrical outlet.
Yeah.
So what do you think the electricity is actually doing to make the motor move?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I'm thinking about when we talked about normal car engines, we talked about that the gasoline explodes a whole lot. So I'm curious, like, are there little tiny explosions happening in electricity? Well, where would that sort of fire? What does it do? I don't know. I don't really know what electricity is. And so I know like it creates energy, but I'm not sure if that's through explosions or through something else it's doing that ends up making energy.
Okay. Let's see. Let's think about what are some. So you've talked about engines, and you've
Yeah.
talked about like there's the fuel that makes the explosions that then moves the mechanical parts, and that makes it move. What other forces do you think might be usable in making things move?
Oh gosh, forces other than explosions. Um, Heat, possibly,
Okay.
or like temperature could probably do something maybe. Or trying to think of what else would make things move. Gosh, I mean, my brain is kind of drawing a blank, and I just keep thinking about energy because we talk a lot on this podcast just about like energy and that it like produces heat and light and all these different things. But I don't know how that would be transferred into something actually physically moving, you know?
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. We have a lot to talk about, and you're definitely going to learn some things, and hopefully you find it really interesting and cool.
Yay!
Well, Cheryl, okay, you don't necessarily have a lot of ideas, and that's totally okay because this is a very complex topic, or can be. You might kick yourself when I tell you what the answer is, but prior to college level courses, a lot of this topic is just sort of hand waved and like, trust me, this is true. And it works. So don't feel bad that you're not really sure how electric motors work, because it doesn't take very many questions to suddenly be in the deep end of science and a lot of fundamental physical things we talk about. So,
And I'm going to actually just jump in here real quick and say that at one point, Ian and I was over at Ian's house and we were talking about this, and I was asking those questions, and I think we talked for like over an hour. It's like, but wait, what about, but doesn't that mean, well, how does that work with? So you're doing great, Cheryl.
Thank you. I was feeling vulnerable, so I appreciate that. But I mean, I think we found that on this podcast, in order to really have like one concise lesson, it's like, oh, we're not going to get to all of it.
So I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer, and then I'm going to backtrack and we're going to go explain how it works, because you actually asked a really great question as part of the pre-assessment. Yes. So the answer is magnets.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Oh my gosh,
the answer
I didn't
is
know that.
Magnets. So cool. For an electric motor, the electric energy that you put in from the wall or a battery or whatever is converted into mechanical motion via magnetism. Also, you are 100% right. It's spinning motion. So that's cool
Ooh.
too. And not just because it's a blender or a car, and we'll get to
Okay.
that as well. But the really great question you asked is, what is electricity? And I think that's a really great question, because nowadays so much of our world depends on electricity.
Yeah.
When I was in college, which has been a while now, but I had a professor who got his degree before modern electronics was invented. So before the transistor was invented, back when they only had vacuum tubes. And so it is not, compared to human history, it is not that long that we have had electricity, and that our society has been powered by it. So I think this is a really great question to ask. What is electricity? And the answer is electricity is electrically charged particles. And you've probably heard of them. They are the electron and the proton.
Oh, yes. I have heard of them.
So the electron has what we consider the negative charge, and the proton has the positive charge. And to some extent, these are just sort of arbitrary, whether they're positive or negative. You can flip all of the positive and negative signs, and everything still, works out the same way. It's just by convention, the electron is considered negative and the proton is considered positive. And a little history lesson, it's unfortunate because Benjamin Franklin thought that the protons, the positive charges, were the ones that moved around the wires, and it turns out it's actually the electrons. The protons stay in place, and it's the electrons that move. So he's the reason why everything's backwards. But it all works out,
so
like
funny.
I said.
But okay, so is that why on batteries there's a positive end and a negative end, and you put them opposite each other when you put in two batteries? Interesting.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. The charges flow from, we call it flowing from the positive to the negative, but basically, they flow from one end to the other. So there's the positive end and the negative end.
Nice.
We won't go into a lot more electrical engineering than that,
Okay.
but that's what electricity is. It is electrons, and so a couple of lessons ago, you learned about gravity, and you learned about the Higgs field. Do you remember what the field is?
It's a trampoline.
Well, that's space-time. You're close.
Wait, was the trampoline the analogy that we used for the Higgs field, Ryan?
It wasn't the analogy that we used for the Higgs field. It was an analogy that we used, though. That was just for, as Ian said, space-time itself. So space itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the Higgs field, I remember the term, but apparently I just remember trampolines. So you might want to give me a little refresher.
Right. So not the Higgs field specifically, but a field is a sort of an area where there can be forces on objects. The Higgs field is a very specific type of field, but charged particles like electrons have an electric field around them based on the amount of charge, or I should say, the electric field depends on the amount of charge kind of at the center. If you have one electron, you have a certain amount of an electrical field, which really just sort of measures how much it would push or pull another charged particle that came near it. So in the same way that magnets, they have a north end and a south end. And if you try and push two north ends together, they want to push away. But a north and a south want to pull together. So magnets also have a magnetic field that kind of measures the strength of that push or pull.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so there's electric fields around charged particles, and then there's magnetic fields around, like this is a refrigerator magnet. also called a permanent magnet because it is always producing a magnetic field.
So any magnet that I have that I would call a magnet is a permanent magnet, I'm guessing?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And so these fields, they attract kind of their opposite and they repel their same. So two north ends of a magnet repel. Two electrons want to repel against each other, but an electron and a proton want to like come together. So there's an electrical field around an electron. But when a electrical charge, like an electron or a group of electrons, moves, they produce a magnetic field.
When they move.
Yes. As they move, like down a wire, or like if you're just firing them off into the air, as they move, they produce a magnetic field. And because we're talking about forces, we also need to talk about direction, because there's sort of a magnitude of the field, how strongly they push or pull, but there's also a direction in which they push or pull.
Okay.
And so in physics, there's this concept of the right-hand rule, and we can apply it to, yes, thank you, Ryan. And we can apply it to figuring out how these fields are generated. So if you take your hand and you lay it flat, your pointer finger is pointing in the direction the electron is traveling.
Okay.
These fingers
are
pointing, in the direction that the electrical field is sort of being emanated from. And your
thumb, like a 90-degree angle from the pointer finger. Okay.
The thumb is in the direction of the magnetic field. So the magnetic field that's generated by a moving charge is perpendicular to both the direction of travel and the electrical field.
Except my thumb is not at a right angle to my pointer finger.
Well, okay. I mean, it's...
Pretend it is.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yes. You might think of electricity and magnetism as two separate things, but they're not. Electricity and magnetism are both components of the same fundamental force, cleverly named electromagnetism.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point.
But these things are, these things are not actually separate phenomena. They are components of the same underlying thing. A good way to describe it is that it's almost like if you're looking at something in like a picture in two dimensions, there's a height component and then there's a sort of width component, right? And so you can think of these things as it's all one painting, but you may have different heights in it, you may have different widths in it, or elements spread out. They're both the same, but fundamentally they're all connected. So it's not two separate things. If you want to know why a moving charge produces a magnetic field, we have to jump to special relativity, so we're not going to do that.
But Ryan's eyes did just light up.
All right, so now we know how magnetic fields are generated, and we can talk about the current, which is the electricity moving from a battery or the wall through your blender or through your car's electrical motor. Again, the magnetic field is perpendicular to the direction of motion in the electric field. So again, we use the right-hand rule. And in a straight wire, if you point your thumb up in the direction of travel along the wire, the way that your fingers curl around is the way that the magnetic field is being emitted from the wire. So if you have a straight wire, like I do here, the electricity is running up it, the magnetic field is swirling around this way, which would be
really
counterclockwise. Yes.
Is
all
that why
along
wires
here.
like a circle shape? Or they're round?
No, not necessarily. I think they're just
Okay.
round because it's an easier shape to form.
Yeah.
So if I were to run electricity through this wire, it would generate a magnetic field around it. Now it would be pretty weak because the proportion of electricity compared to the strength of the magnetic field is scaled down a lot. But now I'd like to do some demonstrations to show you how you can build your own electromagnet. This is maybe something that you've done in science class when you were in elementary school. I did,
excited.
but not necessarily everyone else did. So I have a D-cell battery here. I should say, what I'm about to do, be careful. It's safe to kind of mess around with batteries this way, but please do not plug something into the wall and try and make an electromagnet that way, because that would be very dangerous.
How about we say, if we have any children listening, to involve your parent in whatever you're doing, and then parents, be adults.
So first, I'm going to hook up a straight wire to the battery, and we'll see if we can make an electric magnet. So one moment while I adjust my camera.
All right.
So I have a box of standard metal paper clips here. With my D-cell battery, I'm going to tape one end of this straight wire to one end of the battery.
This is terrifying already.
What's terrifying about it?
This is like everything I was taught to not do as a child. Like, you don't mess with things like this, so it's a little scary.
I'm about to short out the battery. Fortunately, this battery is small. It won't catch on fire.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
But if you did
like a
this
horror
with
movie.
if you did this with your wall socket, it would be a very different story. So
Yeah, no, don't do that.
I take this on here. So now I have a lot of electricity running through this approximately 1 meter long cable or wire.
Pretty much he's taped both ends of the batteries now on this thing. Holy moly.
Well, you can see it's not picking anything up because this field is very weak.
Okay.
Yeah, he held it up to a box of paper clips.
He held the
didn't pick
wire
anything
up. Yeah, the wire itself.
Yeah.
Now, remember when I said, because we're talking about forces, we have to talk about direction. So what I have here is another meter length piece of wire, which I have curled approximately 20 times or so. Now,
Like around a pencil, like you kind of like you stuck a pencil in and like just wound it around in a spiral around the pencil, took the pencil out, and now you just have this tight curl spiral.
Yes. Yeah? Now, this is so one way to increase the magnetic field is to run more electricity through the wire. Another way to increase it is to coil it around, because if you can see, these coils are laying next to each other, which means that, as the electricity runs along the curl, if we use our right hand rule, let's see, there, the electricity is the magnetic field is going to come out this way, right? But these coils are all aligned with each other, which means the magnetic field is going to, all the magnetic fields of each curl are going to add on top of each other, producing a stronger magnetic field. Let's see if this will be good enough to pick up a paperclip.
I'm just waiting for Ian to shock himself, and I'm a little worried about it. He's once again.
Hey, I'm a professional.
Literally, he's a professional.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, so the coil is like in the middle of the meter-long wire. It's not the whole wire. And then he's still taped one end to the positive end of the battery, like the top or whatever, and the other to the bottom. I actually don't know which one's positive, which one's negative. And so it's almost exactly the same as the other, except that now in the middle of the wire, like farthest away from the actual battery, it's all coiled up.
Let's see if this will do it. And may not. It's probably hard to see. They are slightly attracted to it.
Oh, I saw
But
some
not-
movement.
but not enough that it can pick it up. So
Yeah.
there's a third thing you can do to increase the strength of a magnetic field. And this is the classic thing that you might do in like 3rd or 4th grade. You take an iron nail and slip
And it
it
has to be
through
iron?
the coil. It needs to be a ferrous material, which is typically iron, but there's some other, cobalt works. There's a few other metals that are very good at becoming magnets themselves. So now I've wrapped this through, and come on. Well, it worked when I tested this out. Oh, there we go.
You know,
A paper clip.
So I have made my own electromagnet out of a D-cell battery, 1 meter of wire, and a nail.
wow.
That's exciting.
So this nail, because it has a bunch of unpaired electrons in it, the magnetic field going through the wire aligns them all in the same direction, which then aligns their magnetic fields and makes the overall magnetic field stronger.
Interesting.
So the way that an electric motor works is that it has coils inside of it that you run electricity through. And I think most of them have permanent magnets, although it's not a requirement. You can also do it with other coils of electromagnets. And the two forces push against each other. You set them up to be the same poles. And so they want to push against each other, and you put one in the middle and the other around it, and it'll cause it to spin.
Cool.
I can quickly show you one more picture of what that looks like.
Yes, please.
So you have, in this case, you have permanent magnets around the edge, the north and the south. In the middle, those fixed ones are called the stator, and then the middle is called the rotor because it spins, it rotates. And you'll see that you have electricity going in and feeding these. So the blue is north and the red is south. So it starts to push. The blue starts to push away from north because it wants to repel. And it starts to spin the rotor and spin around. And then normally when the north and south are aligned, it would stop. But what the motor then does is it switches the direction the electricity flows through the coils so that this south becomes north again and this north becomes south again, causing it to continuously spin.
It switches?
It does.
So if the motor's going super fast, is it switching like really, really fast?
Yeah, it can be, depending on the speed of the motor and how it's designed. Obviously, this is a very simple motor, but they can be more complex. Yeah, they can spin very fast.
Wow.
And so the magnets pushing each other, the electromagnet versus the permanent magnet, cause it to spin, and that's what generates the motion from an electric motor.
That's so cool.
Okay, Cheryl, that's the lesson on how an electrical motor works. There are a lot of different types of electrical motors, but they all operate on that same principle of using electricity to generate a magnetic field to spin the motor part.
Nice.
And so now it's time for your quiz. Now, as a substitute, I don't like to give quizzes, but I have specific instructions from your teacher that I have to give you a quiz.
I was going to say, as a
So-
student, I like to not take quizzes. So we could try just like, I won't tell if you won't. But the only problem with that is that Ryan is still present right now and also will be editing this episode. So like he's going to find out, and then like I'm going to have detention or have extra homework or something, and I don't want to deal. So we should probably just get it over with, but like we can make it as painless as possible.
Okay. Well, fortunately, the very first question is true or false. So that's always nice, right?
Yes.
True or false? Electricity and magnetism are separate forces.
Oh, this sounds like a trick question. True or false? Yes. Yeah, they're separate, but then they're friends.
That's actually false. They are
Dang it.
they are components of the same fundamental force, electromagnetism.
That's what she said. They're friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
I'll give you
thinking
partial
that
credit.
like one leads to the other, but they are actually the same thing.
They are
Okay.
and this gets really noodly because it gets to deep physics stuff, but they are part of the same. It's like looking at I can never remember the artist, but you know the artist that paints with dots, and then when you're up close it doesn't look like anything, and when you stand far back away it's this really fancy picture with people at a park or whatever.
Uh-huh.
They're like that. They are part of the same whole, but you can look at them in different positions and see different things. But
That's why
they
it felt like a trick question.
ultimately
They're a little
are
different.
the same fundamental force, one of the four
Okay.
fundamental forces. You've now learned about two of them, gravity and electromagnetism.
Oh my goodness. All
Okay.
right.
Next question. Name 3 ways you can increase the strength of an electromagnet.
Ooh. Okay. Well, one is coiling the wire, which makes me wonder if that's why some of the electric things in my home have a coily water, or if it's just again a design thing and has nothing to do with it. But sometimes, have you ever seen those little like springy coily wires on things, like on hair
Yes.
dryers or things like that?
Oh.
Yeah, sometimes that is to reduce the strain on the wire itself so it doesn't break.
Okay.
But you may be able to look through the vents in the back of a hairdryer and see coiled wire inside, and that would be the coiled wire
Oh.
for the electric motor.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense because I have seen the little tiny coils of wire before, and that's why. That's so cool. Did I distract you enough that you forgot that I still have to answer 2 more?
No,
Okay, dang it.
two. So that's definitely one way.
Okay, well, iron and then you listed some other things and you said what iron classified under. Ryan, what's the thing that iron classified under that he said?
A ferromagnetic, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that right?
So
yeah.
yes, if
Cobalt.
wrap
You
it-
mentioned cobalt.
Yep. Yeah, so if you wrap the wire around a core of iron or some other material, iron is the most common because it's like one of the most common metals that we have that does the job. That will increase the strength of the magnetic field. One more.
Getting a bigger battery, or more batteries. I don't know what else would increase the strength because the first thing you wait, did I get it right? Actually,
You did.
heck yeah!
Sending more electricity through the wire will increase the strength of the magnetic field.
That makes sense.
It usually pales in comparison to doing things like looping it around a metal and coiling it and stuff like that, but that will do it. You can, in fact, create an electromagnet with straight wire. I had a physics professor who did it once. He hooked it up to a car battery very briefly,
Oh
and he
my
had
gosh.
2 strands of wires next to each other, and when he touched the terminal, the wires went bam together.
Wow.
Wow.
But that is a lot of
Interesting.
electricity, so don't do that at home.
Okay. I'm not going to do any of this at home. Not even that battery thing you showed me. So don't worry.
Great. You got the 3 ways you can increase the strength of electromagnets.
All
You're
right.
doing great. All right. Final question. Describe how an electric motor converts electrical energy into mechanical motion.
Okay, so there is a positive end and a negative end. And they don't like themselves. They only like the opposite kind. And so when they're near their own kind, either that, or you also said north or south end. So like if when the north is near the north, they are going to push away from each other. And so when all of that energy comes through, and that there are built-in north and south ends, and then there's like a rotating guy that also has a north end and a south end. And so when the south end and the south end are near each other, it runs away, and then it hangs out near the north end. But then the direction switches super fast. I still don't understand quite how fast, because that is a crazy amount of speed that those are turning, but it switches directions and then it keeps going. And that's how it goes in circles, is it keeps running away from itself. It needs to go to therapy probably, but you know.
It's just spinning in circles, not getting anywhere.
I know.
But it's spinning your car wheels.
Well, I like that then.
Good job, Cheryl.
Thanks. That was fun.
Cheryl, I'm so impressed. You did such a great job.
Oh my gosh. You came back. Thank you.
I've been here the whole time.
I know. Thanks. That was really fun.
Yeah. And Ian, thank you so much for sharing about how electric motors and electromagnets work. There was some stuff in there that I definitely remember learning, but there was other stuff that I was like, I don't know that I ever actually knew that piece. So that was fun for me as well.
Yay. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed my time here.
Yay. Thanks, Ian. Although typically subs just like let people watch a movie and hang out. So like you might want to catch on to that. And maybe next time we like have early recess time. But if it wasn't going to be that, it was a cool lesson. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for this lesson this week. So why don't you pack up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.